Hello and finally welcome to All Elite Morro. Oh my god, what a clusterfuck I had starting up there. I cursed already. I'm never going to get good at this non-cursing thing. What a clusterfuck. Stream key wouldn't connect. All this kind of stuff. I had it set up since about 5 o'clock. Um, Now I kind of forgot everything I was going to say. So, yeah, Jesus, what a start to the stream. Just going to check that it is actually live and I'm not just talking into the abyss here. Because if I was, that would be a pain in the hole. Um, what's happening here? Click on that. Yeah, we're live. Deadly. Deadly. Uh, what a week in the world of pro wrestling. What a mad week. Me and Shane did a 3 hour 20-minute live yesterday watching Night of Champions. That's as good a place as any to start. Finally seen some backlash, not the show, backlash to Triple H's booking. So we have the card here. Let's have a quick look at it. Opener, Randy Orton versus Cody Rhodes. Pretty decent. Weird match. As Shane said, it subverted his expectations. I kind of liked the match. Although I did think it was weird. It felt like it set up heel turns for both Cody and Orton. Like, it was really weird. Orton obviously had a lot of heel mannerisms towards the end of the match, threatened the punt kick. Went to follow through on the punt kick, in fact. But Cody worked the match, I thought, like the main body of the match, kind of as a heel as well. So that was interesting. Cody obviously moving on to SummerSlam for the shot at the title. Right decision. Then we went on to, what was the second match? Rhea and Raquel. Kind of like that match too. Good start to the show. Two decent matches. Again, Rhea wins. Some talk on commentary about a um, potential, what would you call it, title shot in the future. Found that interesting. Then we got onto Sami Zayn and Karrion Kross. That was kind of shit. Kross just can't go at Sami's level. Kross beaten very easily in the end as well. Maybe that's the write-off. There has been talk that his contract is up in the next month or so. So that could potentially be the write-off match for him. I know he's been working exceptionally hard behind, like, um, building his brand over the last few months, and he's done a really good job at that, and he's created intrigue with his storylines. I think the issue is just though in the bell rings, he isn't that crisp or that smooth, or his matches just aren't that compelling. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the future holds for Karrion Kross. And that might be something we can get into a little bit later when we look at the roster that somebody has. One of the other promotions, there is a few landing spots potentially for Karrion Kross if he does leave the company. I won't be surprised if they're doing a work shoot. Maybe Triple H got the idea from the Ron Killings thing, the Ron Killings thing that he tried to turn into a work shoot when in fact it was a shoot. So yeah, that was just kind of shit. We had then Jade versus Asuka. Like we spoke about this on the live stream, Jade definitely has improved. Obviously, since we've first seen her, like it's crazy. Her first ever professional wrestling match was televised. She hasn't really ever had the chance to develop away from the screens, so it is tough for her. And she can go spot to spot and look really impressive. It's just a little stuff in between. I said she doesn't really sell that well, and then she's selling the knee. And then Shane said, "Look, she's selling the knee." And then, as Tommy Flynn pointed out in the chat, she did a kip up on her dodgy knee a few minutes later. So it's that stuff that really holds her back in terms of the immersion of her matches. Asuka's just awesome anyway. But Asuka's pushing on in years as well. She's into her 40s. So I would like to see her get another run on top. Unfortunately, it's not starting here. It's Jade, which makes sense. Jade holding the title shot and Naomi holding the um, Money in the Bank briefcase. They have history. They haven't done any blow off of their feud. So I think either Naomi cashes in, wins the title, and then we go from there into a program between them, or uh, or Naomi wins the title, and then we get. Someone telling me there's chats, but I don't see them. No. They're not coming up. It's fucking YouTube, boy. YouTube is a pain in the fucking arse, isn't it? Ah, loud and clear. You are live. Thanks a million. And like Dave, Oshin, Sean, who stayed with me there while I was having those nightmares at the start trying to get the stream key working. Thanks a million for sticking around straight in with the cursing. Like 10-year-old daughter, I'm so sorry, Sean. Um, yeah, I'm so sorry. I am trying to cut down on the cursing. It doesn't always work. Uh, Oshin felt there was a decent duality with Orton in his match with Cody between the hesitation of punting and the heelish holds and trying to drive Cody into the turnbuckle. Yeah, I did like it was the best match on the card without a shadow. Like I don't think there was a close second really. I just thought it was really interesting what they were doing with the two of them as well. Um, because it's like they're smart guys, those two, and they've left it in such a way that either of them can logically turn. And then when we get to the main event, there's some other interesting things coming out of that as well. Um, that could play into what Cody and Orton did in the opener. Um, but yeah, Jade and Naomi, good dynamic with winning the Queen of the Ring #1 contendership, and Naomi holding the briefcase. It could be a case where Jade could win the title, Naomi cashes in instantly, and we get that delayed gratification of Jade beating her down the line. Little bit of a chase situation. Then we get on to the Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu match. And I was kind of looking forward to this because I do think Solo Sikoa has improved a lot as a worker over the last 12 months. You know, like he got pushed into a spot he probably wasn't ready for. But also when that happens, people do generally tend to improve. Like he's working main event matches with Cody. Now, when that match happened, was he ready for it? No, but he probably did come out of that match uh, more ready for future opportunities. So he's definitely improved as both a worker and a character. He was also went from being like the heater of a faction to the leader of a faction. That's a huge difference. You're the one now that's having to hold storylines instead of just hanging around the background looking menacing. But this is really on the card where Triple H's worst tendencies as a booker, start to come to light. He starts to just go back to those few little tricks that he loves to use again and again and again. What did we get here? Another bloodline match with another debut. It's just such a crutch in the booking. This time we get Hikaleo. I don't know what they're calling him. Talatonga, perhaps I heard said on the internet last night. Um, I don't think they referenced on the actual um on the actual show what he's going to be called, but someone did online afterwards say Talatonga, which is very close to Tamatonga and Tongaloa. A lot of Tongas in there. So yeah, I'm not so sure. Would it be better for Naomi to cash in at SummerSlam or Evolution 2? I think Evolution, because I think SummerSlam is already going to be pretty jam packed with a lot of cool things happening. If you want to give something like that kind of space and make a story out of it and make a moment out of it, it'll have more breathing room on Evolution. I really hope Evolution isn't just another 5 match card. That would hurt it a little bit, but it would also give that cash in a little bit of space. Um, Sean says, "Don't stop cursing. It's part of the charm." Thank you. I think Cody faces Cena. Orton runs out to make the save during some Cena antics. Randy accidentally costs Cody the match, and Cody turns on Orton. Okay, so we get a Cody turning on Orton. Interesting. They could do that and delay things with Cena dropping the title because I just feel in the long term or in the long run anyway that's whether it's at SummerSlam or later, Cena's dropping the title back to Cody. Um, it would make sense. I could see Cody going into next year's Mania as champion. I also thought they'd probably do the heel turn around WrestleMania time next year. I think it's probably too soon in my mind there's too much money left in him um, as a face. Uh, Too much money left on the table if you turn him too soon. So I do think they're going to delay that a little bit more. Uh, yeah, you follow up there, CM, saying they made Randy seem almost too heel. It's a misdirection. And yeah, I'm going to get to that scene of showing glimpses of the face behaviour in the main event as well. That was quite apparent. Um, I do get what you're saying. I do kind of like that direction, and it does hit a major refresh at the top of their card. Between the main eventers, it creates so much more new dynamics, more potential matchups. I just think that they're not going to do the Cody turn yet. I think probably the biggest money match they have right now still is heel Cena defending against face Cody. Now they may do a double turn perhaps even in that match. Um, but I think they do the build to that match with Cena as a heel and Cody as a face. Yeah, so back to this bloodline shenanigans again. It's just another debut like we've seen it so many times. We've seen Jeff Cobb, now known as Jesse Mateo, debut at Mania, helping Fatu win the title. Tamatonga made big debuts, Tongaloa, and now Hikuleo. It's just like this booking crutch that has just filtered into the bloodline stuff. And I think it's just so unimaginative, um, lacking in creativity, and really kind of boring me, to be perfectly honest. And it's just diluting and filtering down the whole thing. Like Jesse Mateo, who is a big signing for them. Like I'm sure they're paying him good money because his contract's coming up. Had worked in New Japan for years, has ties to El Ospreay. I'm sure AEW made a play for him as well. He had appeared on AEW previously. Um, I'm sure there was maybe not a huge bidding war, but definitely he had multiple options. I'm sure New Japan were happy to renew his contract as well. So they're probably paying him pretty good money, and it's so weird. He feels so unimportant already for somebody that's so impressive, and you filter down and you dilute his debut by constantly adding more members doing the same things. Um, so yeah, I just think it's just bad booking on that front. Universal says, "Hello everyone, hello Universal. Is that the movie studio? Because I am open to like a collaboration with a big time movie studio who's willing to pay me ridiculous amounts of money to talk about wrestling on the internet. Dream job, you know? Be so awesome if I could just sit here and do this every day. That's not going to happen. But anyway, I don't live in the real world. My volume is low. People sound it's good, it's good, it's good. Maybe not. How's that? A little bit better. I'm hesitant about going too high because I live quite near a road, and it's time of day where a lot of traffic can be passing by. So if you do hear traffic in the background, let me know. Um, I'm going to upgrade this microphone to one that filters things a little bit better. The filtering on this microphone isn't good. It picks up a lot of static in the background as well. Even though I paid kind of decent money for it, um, at the same time, it should be filtering traffic noise from like a half a mile away. So on to the main event with CM Punk and John Cena. This when Shane put out the call earlier in the day for feedback from the wrestling show fans. um, Al Mario was straight in, and his exact words. And Sean, if you have any kids in the car while you're listening to this, block some ears. His exact words were, "Main event, what a clusterfuck," and I totally agree. Again, this is going back to Triple H's, in my mind, unimaginative, uninspired, and uncreative booking at times. He tried to recreate the WrestleMania 40 main event where all these people showing up, and that totally wasn't warranted here. It's become such a booking crutch that their main events feature 25 run-ins and a ref bump and this and that, and really wasn't warranted in this match. And let me explain, because I think this is important. It worked so extremely well when Cody finally beat Roman. For the reason being that whole reign, all of Roman's reign, every match featured the babyface trying to overcome the bloodline. So what we got then in the payoff to that, with Cody finally finishing a story and beating Roman Reigns, was that the bloodline had to be overcome. That was a feature of the story from basically day one of it. And so many of these characters who had um, title shots or like title potential victories for the title costed them by the bloodline now came back to get their revenge. So all of those characters showing up in the season finale to help Cody finally win the title against the bloodline, who'd been dominating as a faction for years, warrants that kind of collection of characters showing up. The CM Punk and John Cena storyline was this extremely personal one-on-one storyline build. It was just the two of them in every segment they did, and it was about their own personal or interpersonal history. And so, like, even the promo package just before and at the start of the show was just about them going back to 2011 and their shared history. Um, and so, really, the match was built around it being about the two of them. So it should have just stayed the two of them. And was the match good up to that point? Not really. It was fine. It wasn't terrible by any means. Uh, there was some nice stuff in there. Punk kicking out several finishers, like that's become another feature. Finisher spam kick out in these main events. I believe the last time a WWE World Title match main event didn't have some sort of ref bump, outside interference shenanigans was and it wasn't even a world title match actually. It was the Cody versus Gunter match in Saudi in the latter half of last year, about 8 or 9 months ago. So like, you have 8 months of repetitive, repetitive booking. So it's kind of a little bit just boring to me. Have Oshin here says, um, like I said somewhere else earlier today, Triple H uses way too much DQ and interference finishes. The match itself was actually decent, bar the penta and set crew nonsense. I totally agree with that. The match was pretty decent. It wasn't terrible, certainly not terrible by any means, but they turned it into a clusterfuck. Because like, I know, like, what are we doing? We're going back to Punk versus Seth again, just constantly extending that feud. Like, there's so many interesting people that Punk could be feuding against, and he spent the whole of his first year in the company with Drew, and now basically the whole of his second year in the company with Seth, and now we're dragging that into his next year in the company. I don't know, man. Yeah, I just don't know about just constantly going back to that thing. Um, Punk was in the Middle East, yeah, in Qatar, on previous tours. Oh, I'm going to get into that next. Actually, let's dive in. This was a bumper week for the brand of CM Punk. Punk's one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, and none of this would have been if an issue whatsoever had he not decided himself to make it an issue when he sent that tweet to the Miz a few years ago. Um, I have no issue with a wrestler going to take a paycheck in the Middle East. I took a paycheck in the Middle East myself for 10 years. I lived there. Um, However, this is about branding for Punk. Punk is very, very cognizant of his perception online, his perception among the fan base, and he certainly tries to build a certain type of aura around himself. And he sent out that tweet to the Miz knowing he would get mad support from a certain type of wrestling fan, liberal left leaning fan. I'm a liberal left leaning fan myself. I just thought it was funny. I did think it was a really funny tweet at the time, but he did that in order to get applause and pats on his back. So when he then turns around and goes back on what he said and makes the groveling apology and does the humiliation tour, of course you do deserve to get some grief about it as well. Like if you look at all the different things he had to do, like this storyline was built around him being a hypocrite. That was a stupid idea in my mind on WWE's part, but also they did do that. Um, it was built around that the Slim Jim sitting in the table for 6 minutes while Cena riffed off the pipe bomb, and then him dressing up as Cena and doing that goofy angle uh, as him, the hustle, loyalty, respect stuff. I thought that was terrible. It made him look really bad. It just made him look goofy. And Punk is at his best when he's deadly serious. I went back and watched the MJF stuff the other day. There's a brilliant documentary about it on YouTube. I might stick the link in the comments at the end. It's class. But also, I went and watched one of their promos against each other, sensational, and also the match itself, the dog collar match. And Punk in that mode is legit one of the best wrestlers in the world. For dragging you into his world and the emotion of the match and just creating like super high tension scenarios. Um, but when he's out there doing a mockery of basic tokenomics, John Cena, it's not who it's not where it's not what he should be doing. Like the previous angle, he gets put through a table and has to listen to Cena. It's basically a blood feud at that stage. He should want to kill Cena, not make a mockery of Cena. And I think WWE have kind of since acknowledged that it was crap because on in the live version of SmackDown on Netflix, they then on the later version that was heavily edited and they added crowd sweetening. They edited out some of his flub lines. So I think there's an acknowledgement within the company that you know it didn't go to plan because they wouldn't be doing post production editing if it did go to plan. So on that front, I think it was just a bumper week for damaging the brand of CM Punk. Other people go to Saudi. Sammy, Kevin Owens went, Roman Reigns went, all, and none of them ever got any grief about it. But it's not hypocritical then to turn around and give shit to CM Punk about it. It's because he set himself up for that. He took the applause for being anti blood money. Now, when he takes the blood money, he needs to eat his lunch or breakfast or eat his own words, so to speak. So yeah, I enjoyed the pylon and CM Punk immensely. Look, this guy's a multi-millionaire. I don't think he gives a shit what people think. Well, I don't know. These wrestlers are very insecure people, I think, in general, at this level. Like, you see it with Triple H, super insecure. I think CM Punk's probably quite insecure. I don't understand why. He is one of the best of his generation, and certainly one of the most compelling characters of his generation. But yeah, I suppose on to a little bit of AW. Actually, there's a good question in there. The biggest botch of the last night was Jed's 2 count win. Universal. Yes. Yes. And it was just not acknowledged. But yeah, they were right not to acknowledge it. But it just kind of does show her how green she is. I didn't mention that earlier. Oh, the punk version of the Tugonomics was 23 years later on the same day. Love that. Very interesting. Um, okay, a couple of things about Dynamite this week. Again, another good episode of Dynamite. Not the best episode of Dynamite in the last 2 months, but still very solid episode. Going to look a little bit at the build to All In on some new things. I'm not going to cover Hangman this week. Not going to cover Omega Okada. Well, a little bit of Okada maybe, but so there was some clunky stuff on this show, particularly uh, the Young Bucks and their kind of changing the timing of the Swerve Osprey tag match. You got Osprey running out, still putting on his gear and so on. And it was kind of like a little bit funny in that, but it was also a little bit dumb. I never felt, I always felt that AEW should never have on screen authority figures. And the Bucks acting in that role over the last, what was it, I suppose, just over 12 months anyway, have really hurt, no, even longer than that, have really hurt their perception, I suppose, on TV. It hasn't helped any of their storylines. It actually hasn't really even gotten them the heat that they were aiming for it, aiming to get from it. So what I do love how they've set this tag match up now for All In, that the Bucks will be stripped of their EVP status if they lose to Osprey and Swerve. Now the only issue I have with that is it kind of, I suppose, uh, gives away the finish, because I do think on screen in kayfabe they need to, that they, as the company wants to get those EVP, that EVP tag off them on screen, and then just never ever have an on screen authority figure again as such. Because it's dumb, it creates logical holes. We all know as an audience that Tony Khan is running the show backstage. They tell us on the broadcast that Tony Khan is booking matches backstage and so on. So like when the Young Bucks here ban Swerve from the building for the rest of the night, uh, ban Swerve from the building for the rest of the night. Me as a viewer is there thinking, why can't Tony just, like, tell him no, that's not happening. He can hang around. He's an employee here. Now it did make logical sense of why, they're obviously, when the Debt Riders attack Swerve at the end of the show, or attack Hangman at the end of the show, and Swerve isn't there to save him, there's a logical reason for it, and they're obviously saving that moment for when Swerve helps Hangman for the pay per view, as they should, and they gave us a logical reason why it couldn't happen on this week's Dynamite. So yeah, this is a good way to get that EVP kayfabe status off them. Obviously, on contract terms, they'll remain executive vice presidents of the company. I don't think they have too much power in that capacity. Um, I'm sure they have a little bit of power, but not any major power. But it was used on screen too flippantly over the last year, and this will be a good way to kind of reposition them within the tag division as workers and not as this crappy gimmick of their EVP stuff. Kieran Dunphy said the Bucks need to. Are we going to mention the daft table spot in Rhea's match? I would have preferred something where they go through the table. Like that move could have been done off the top ropes anyway, or off the middle rope, whatever. Um, and I like the thing of the ref holding the table. I don't mind that, because you see that in ladder matches the whole time as well. Like the ref, I suppose, his primary concern is the safety of the performers, both in and out of kayfabe. So if he sees them doing something that he's like, oh shit, I'm just going to hold the table here so they don't kill themselves, that nobody gets badly hurt here. It works for me in kayfabe, but it was a stupid spot anyway. It wasn't like, it didn't look that impressive, and it took ages to set up, and it was just very clunky. And yeah, like a basic go through the table spot would have been equally, or if not more viscerally, impressive. So yeah, uh, Karen Dunphy says Bucks need to leave AEW. I'm not totally against that idea. I think at this stage of their careers they could have a really good run in WWE. It would refresh them a bit. It would allow AEW to center their tag team division on another team. Like 6 years is a long time to be kind of the centerpiece of a division. I know they haven't always been the champions, and at times FDR were the centerpiece of the division. Uh, but it's been a long time where the real centerpiece of this division, regardless of who the champions are, have either been the Bucks or FTR. And I just think, yeah, it's a long time to have that dynamic there. If this was 20 years ago, this would have been a 3 year run. And now we're entering year six. So it is a long time. I don't mind the idea of them leaving. Will Ospreay, time to take that TKO bag, baby. 16 WWE main roster wrestlers are injured right now. Yeah, look, there are statistics out there showing the number of or the kind of average injury rate in a company, and it generally tends to, with all companies, hover between 8 and 12% of the roster injured at a given time. That's just wrestling, it's a physical enterprise. 16 does seem kind of high, but these guys are wrestlers, are going to get injured. So yeah, I don't really, I don't blame anything for that, because their style isn't that, like, it doesn't lend itself to a lot of injuries. So people are going to get injured. Osprey to turn heel after All In, or just go on a mad chase till Wembley next year. You need to keep him face for Wembley the following year. And I know he'd be a face probably in England anyway, but it's weird with the AEW fan base. If he turns heel on Hangman, I don't even know if the English fans would forgive him for that, even if he's the hometown guy. Because Hangman is so beloved by the core fan base. Um, so yeah, I don't. Yeah, I think you need to at least keep him face till the following All in back in Wembley. Um, I think he's doing really great work as a baby face now anyway. So there's a lot of mileage left in him as a face, and there's a lot of big matchups left from him as a face. We still haven't got the Moxley match. That's a huge match, that a huge singles match. So yeah, it's not as if he's running out of opponents as a face. I do think him and Swerve could do a decent semi-lengthy tag run, maybe up to the continent as far as Continental Classic in December. What's that? 5 months. When we win the tag titles. Swerve has unfinished business with the Hurt Syndicate. I don't know if in real life Swerve wants to work with them, but I could see them potentially taking the tag titles off them. A Swerve, now that we have a heel FTR, a Swerve Osprey versus FTR match would be, I do think, incredible. So yeah, in my opinion, you keep him face for quite a while. I kind of have a fancy booking thing in my head that Hangman will win the title, hold it for 6, 7, 8 months. Okada will take it off Hangman, and then Osprey beats Okada in Wembley next year, because like those two are wrestling soulmates. If you want to have a potential goat match to main event All in next year, Osprey Okada is nailed on to be at minimum exceptional. Their history together is just top notch. So yeah, you could do something like that. There are other people that could be in that spot taking off Hangman. I wouldn't have Hangman hold the title from All in this year to All in next year. 13, 14 month title runs, they're very hard to keep a fresh batch of opponents. I think 6 to 8 months is probably your best time frame to keep a title run fresh and exciting. And then obviously every now and again, throw in a shorter one, like the Samoa Joe one last year. Perfect. It makes it feel like the title can swap hands more regularly. Awesome to see Kota Ibushi back Wednesday night against Trent Beretta. Little 7 minute match. Kota Ibushi looked really good. I said last week I was worried. I love him. He's one of my favorite wrestlers of the last 10, 15 years. Um, he's not what he used to be. I think we're in a kind of a Shibata situation with him, where the injuries have piled up over the years, and it's a situation where, like Shibata, he can still go to a pretty high level, but not to the level we had seen before the horrific injuries that both Shibata and both Ibushi picked up. Shibata's almost life-ending injuries, Ibushi's almost career-ending injuries. So it's great to see him back. I feel like we're in that overtime period of his career, and this is a bonus. And we're getting Okada versus Ibushi on television. This was a Tokyo Dome main event, and a tremendous Tokyo Dome main event. Now I don't expect this will be as good as that one, because I don't think either of them at the minute are the wrestler they were when they did that main event. Was that 4 years ago, 3 years ago? Um, but Ibushi did look sick, like night and day compared to his Marufuji match January last year. So he has obviously made huge physical improvements. Delighted to see that. So okay, whoa, let's turn the TV off. What are you thinking for Eddie's return? Is he the one to kill off the Debt Riders after All in? Yeah, I think Eddie should be maybe like some combination of Eddie and Darby are the final nail. Um, I hope Eddie's back soon. Eddie's one of the most compelling characters on TV. It's just raw and honest, and there's a bit of that CM Punk think about him that you want to, as a fan, believe in him. And the thing about Eddie is, I think Eddie is completely genuine and honest. Now maybe I'm being worked, but I love Eddie. Another Eddie Mox feud. There's money in that, but there's so much for Eddie to do there. Like, since he's gone, the landscape is totally different. There's so many people for him to work with now. There's so many alliances he can have, and there's also so many feuds he can have. And you remember, the thing with Eddie Kingston is he can work against the face and he can work against the heel. So I'm really excited for him to come back. Like when he does come back, I'd love to obviously for like a combination of him and Darby to be the ones to finally fully kill off the Death Riders. Um, but also I don't want him to be stuck in that universe for too long because there is uh, so much more that he could be doing on the roster, like Eddie versus Kyle Fletcher. In fact, I'd love an Eddie Kingston versus Don Callis family program. Like there's so many matches in the Don Callis family that Eddie could be exceptional against. Um, Absolutely, I think that Riders started off crap, but more recently it's been good. David Ayers, yes, David, I totally agree. Like when they did the initial angle with murdering Brian Danielson, I was super excited about it, and I thought the follow up Dynamite, maybe two Dynamites, I was like, okay, this is going somewhere, this is going somewhere, and it fell off a cliff for quite a while. Um, fell off a cliff for quite a while, and they've really got it back on track recently, and that's partially due to the work that Mox is doing on the mic and in the ring. He has, I feel like, has upped his intensity a lot in the last few months. But also, I think the cast of characters that are going up against him are just more compelling. They're more compelling characters from a fan point of view. So it has helped the storyline immensely. Mox is fake tough, possibly. A lot of wrestlers are fake tough, Universal. Um, I wouldn't say all other metrics are low. Um, there are like the Mexican show obviously was a big spike, but I wouldn't say all other metrics are low. Uh, they're certainly not as high as they were 2021. Punk was there. We all know Punk is and was a huge draw. 2021 into 2022 in particular. And even like the funny thing is, the storyline that a lot of AEW fans hate, um, the Brochachos in terms of metrics is some of the best metrics the company has ever done, uh, and it was shit. So, but yeah, like this week's Dynamite obviously was a drop from the Mexican show, but there wasn't a whole lot of anything advertised for it, and the NBA draft was on. And what we do see a big correlation with is with the current fan base. It used to be a case for WWE years ago on Monday nights when there was a big Monday night football match on in the NFL. A lot of WWE's lowest ever ratings on Raw are nights when there was a huge NFL number. But if you look at the last few years, that's not the case. So WWE's numbers with the modern fan base aren't being as affected as much by live sports. However, AEW are now in that position when if there's something big in the NBA on a Wednesday night, which is a big night for the NBA and it's also a big night for the NHL. And last week was the draft. We know that the drafts draw, they're going to suffer. And so this week's number was up against the NBA draft. And then they current or they historically have always suffered on nights where there is NBA related content on. But but the NBA draft did a quite a big number. And what you might notice is if you look at the actual rankings, Dynamite still ranked third after Fox News, which does huge numbers anyway, because America being Americans, and at the NBA draft were one and two. NBA draft number one, Fox News number two, and then Dynamite number three. So in terms of where they rank on the week, they held their position, but their overall numbers are down because a lot of those numbers they're still watching TV. They've just migrated to the draft and maybe some news story, big news story that's going on. I don't know what it would have been this week, but probably to the draft because that was the one that did the big numbers. A lot of them will come back for next week's show, but Dynamite will probably be number two next week because there's no draft on. So when some big sports event goes in, they generally tend to drop to either three, four, five. When there's no sports event, their numbers go up a little bit and their position goes up to like number two or three. So that's kind of another way of looking at it. Oshin Mack asked about this. I had it on the run sheet, Oshin. I had a feeling some people would be interested in it. MJF showing up in MLW. I thought this was great because MLW have a really cool partnership with CMLL actually, and it's not something that you hear about a whole lot. But it's funny if you look at MLW ticket sales. When Mystico comes to town, ticket sales shoot up. When they do a giant promotion show, which they do fairly regularly, and Mystico appears on MLW probably once a month, maybe more than once a month sometimes if they do multiple tapings. Ticket sales for those shows do shoot up. So Mystico is booked for MLW this week, Summer of the Beasts. MJF shows up and attacks him. And what I loved about this is that MJF is a guy who came from MLW. And there was actually a lot of MLW were quite pissed off with MJF the way he left them for AEW. He had a kind of a handshake agreement, I suppose you'd call it, with them, and he left during that kind of period and started appearing. He was, at the start he was contracted to MLW and to AEW on both handshake agreements, and then he signed exclusively for AEW, and that kind of hurt MLW a lot. MLW are a company that really, for them to be successful, they have to be very aggressive in identifying talent early before they take off. And they did that with MJF, and they did that with Jacob Fatu. And another guy kind of like that was Alexander Hammerstone. Now, Alexander Hammerstone, a lot of people saw a lot of upside with him, but when he went to TNA, it didn't really work out for him. And now he's gone back to MLW. But MLW aren't in that position in the landscape anymore where they're the first ones to get to that talent and have a couple of years with them before they go to WWE, before they go to AEW. And they're kind of in the position now where they're signing, I don't want to say over the hill talent, but talent who've had their run in the big companies and have been released and maybe still have a bit of name value. And they used to do that before as well. Like C.W. Anderson's there a long time. He had his run a long time ago. But he was there when the likes of MJ, he's still there, but he was there when the likes of MJF were there, when the likes of Jack 2 were there. And now filling in those roles on the roster are people like Bishop Dyer, artist formerly known as Baron Corbin, and Donovan Dijak, who recently won the tag team titles actually on this show. So, but what they're not getting now is the counterbalance of that with those young up and comers. So they're going to struggle without doing that. So it was good to see MJF back there, particularly it's a company that where he built his name, particularly on the mic. He was given a lot of mic time there. He had his faction, the Dynasty. Uh, Sean thinks we're getting a Dynasty review. What you call it? What's this? Some banging doors. A Dynasty reunion. Do you think Hammerstone come in for a Dynasty reunion? I don't think they're picking up Richard Holiday. I can't see AW paying for or giving a contract holiday. I don't think he's terrible, but and there's nothing wrong with him. I just don't, taking up a roster spot. I'm not sure. I did think this recently. I felt like he was going to bring in a new version of the Dynasty to go against the Hurt Locker, or the Hurt Locker. What a film actually, the Hurt Syndicate, and it's something that might still happen. Uh, but yeah, I don't know who those members will be. I don't think we're getting an original Dynasty reunion. We're certainly not those three. Maybe Hammerstone is a bit of a heater for him. You see Holiday coming in? I'm not sure. But yeah, I'm not totally against the idea. So yeah, I like this. I didn't see the rest of the show. Just seen clips here and there. It's hard to have time to watch all the wrestling that goes on, isn't it? Because like I didn't see Samuel's Arena Mexico Friday night, but I did watch the Mystico Bandito match, and that was excellent. The previous week I'd said everyone go watch Bandito Mascara Dorada from the Tuesday night. Mystico Bandito was unbelievable this week, and Mystico isn't the cleanest, as clean a worker as he used to be, but the fan connection is just so great. And Bandito played the heel perfectly, played the Rudo perfectly. So I would highly, highly recommend if you can find it. Don't pay $35 for it. I think it's $35. I paid €30 this month for CMLL highest tier YouTube. Reason being is because they had that big week there with Fantastica Mania, the Tuesday night show before Dynamite, and then I got the bonus obviously of Bandito and Mystico, which wasn't announced when I paid for it. But I'm not. It's not something I'm going to be paying for every month. More likely to reform the Pinnacle, in your opinion, David Ayres, with Jeff Jarrett. I don't hate that at all. I actually kind of like that. Jeff Jarrett can be his MVP. That's kind of cool, actually. Okay. Oh my god. Fucking New Japan. What in the name. I don't know who's seen this so far. This happened this morning. It basically happened on a house show just before the G1. They took the title off Goto and it's gone on to Zack Sabre Jr. in a match with basically no build. Or no real build anyway. Goto's reign was like super interesting. It had 8 defenses. It's selling tickets, or like at least maintaining previous ticket sales, and they've just stuck it on Zack Sabre Jr. Who wants a second Zack Sabre Jr. reign with no build right now? Nobody. Honestly, I think Gedo has lost his mind. His big surprise for Dominion was bringing in Chase Owens and Bad Luck Fale and putting him back in House Torture. Nobody gives a shit. We're sick of the House of Torture shit. And now, the most interesting thing you had going to the company, Hiroki Goto's title reign, at this stage of his career, you use it to put the belt onto Zack Sabre Jr. Why? Because you want to send him to London to Forbidden Door and he's English? I cannot wrap my head around the logic of this. New Japan is actually in shambles. This is a shambolic decision. What is the point of the Goto reign? He had such great audience connection. A veteran babyface that's been there for years, and you use that connection for Zack Sabre Jr., who is already over, but his run didn't do good business. Goto's run should be to establish your next top heel young gun. This company is just not pushing any young guns. You have Gabe Kidd, you have Yota Tsuji, you have Shota Umino, you have Yuya Uemura. Like, come on. Honestly, I'm perplexed. Sean says, what sense does it make having Zack champ again? I can't, like, I pride myself on being able to, like, analyze storylines or stuff. You know what I mean? I cannot, for the life of me, give an I'm speechless. I'm baffled. This show isn't even on New Japan World. I forgot it was on. It's not. It's fucking hell. Legit, one of Gato's dumbest ever decisions, and he's had some dumb ones recently. Like, I don't know, did they go back to Goto after Forbidden Door? But it feels like who cares then at that stage? Oh, Goto gets his second run, and then he loses at the Tokyo Dome to the winner of the G1 then. What do they want to do? I don't know, Tanahashi versus Zack in London or something? Do they want to do even worse again? Ospreay versus Zack in London at Forbidden Door? We've seen that match a million times. Yeah, they have great chemistry, but there's more interesting things to do than Ospreay versus Zack. And what are you going to do? Have Zack beat Ospreay in London a year before AEW are going to want to go back to London to have Ospreay win the title there, probably? Like, none of this makes sense. I just. Can somebody please explain to me? Is Tony's getting the blame for this? Why is Tony getting the blame for this? This is Gato. The signs are there with Gato, like. Gato's been doing stupid shit. Tony isn't booking New Japan. I know you're laughing at that. You're not blaming Tony, Sean. I know that. But it's just dumb. It's just dumb shit. And yeah, I just need to just get that shit off my chest. I added this to the run sheet for today quite late. Look, we're going 49 minutes. Loads of people come in with great comments. Uh, I'm really surprised so many of you showed up because me and Shane did 3 hours 20 minutes or something yesterday, which was class. And again, we had a load of comments for that. It was brilliant. A load of comments again today, and it's the comments really that make this. It's the reason why I wanted to go live, because otherwise I'm sitting here recording, talking to myself. It's hard to talk to yourself about wrestling, but physically and emotionally, because you realize how much of a nerd you are. But when you have all you nerds coming in with interesting comments and questions, it makes this totally worthwhile. So thanks a million for showing up. This is going to be a Sunday night regular, 8 p.m. Sunday nights. However, next week I'm moving it to Monday because I'm a big Kilkenny hurling fan. We're playing Tipperary in the semi-final on Sunday. I'm going to be drinking lots of pints, either celebrating or Drowning My Sorrows. So we're going to go Monday night for All Elite Morro, episode 5, next week, 8 o'clock, Monday night. Shane will put out a thing on the Instagram to get like anything, if you want to add something to the run sheet, we'll do that. Try and keep it to 40 minutes. Went 51 today. I tried to keep the run sheet short. I thought I'd go about 30, but there you have it. We can do this every week. Thanks a million for tuning in. Like, subscribe, share, all the good stuff. What you think of me, huh? All Elite Morro, top class. Morro